What's going on, guys? Today we are going to take a basic rundown of alternate advancement points, also known as AAs. It's been brought to my attention that many of you out there never played Luclin or PoP. Either, you've been just playing on P99 for the last 10 years, and so that's kind of been your thing. You quit back in the day when Luclin came out, or maybe before Luclin came out. Or many of you just haven't played Luclin or PoP or used AAs in 20 plus years, something like that. Also, maybe you've played on TLPs where things have changed. On the TLPs that the official Daybreak spits out, there's been a lot of nerfs, changes, etc. Doesn't exactly look exactly like it does now. But we're just going to do a basic rundown. I'm not going to do each individual class because there are class-specific AAs, but I will link a TAKP Wiki website that has pretty much all the abilities there, and it shows which class can do it. If you don't want to create a level 1 of a class that you don't have, so you can look around at what specific class ones that they have. That would be a very long video, so we won't do the class specifics today, but I will provide a link. The reason we're not using that link in today's video is because it's not organized very well, but the information's there. It's just not organized very well. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into it. So, alternate advancement points. My cat is going to do everything in his power not to let me do this video, but anyways. So some of the basics, you could start being able to put XP into AAs at level 51. At level 51, you then, if you see here on the screen, I've tried to zoom it in so you can see it better. Right here, you have a dial that you can plus or minus in increments of 10%. So you can split the XP that you're getting. If you don't want to put it all into XP AAs, then you can just put partial. Typically what I do is when I'm max level at level currently 60, I like to do a 90-10 split. I do 90% AA, I do 10% regular XP, and that's just to keep XP coming in to make up for any deaths I get. When you get a res, you're probably getting a 96er. You lose a little bit, not too much there. But maybe you take a death and don't get a res, and this little 10% will just chip away at it, as long as you don't die a lot. If you die a lot, then you might want to, throw it all back in there and get caught back up so that you don't risk de-leveling. But typically, I like to keep myself at max. So I'm level 60 with max. And then at that point, I'll use 100% into AA, obviously, because you're going to be wasting any that's going into the regular. But if you do tend to lose some, say you're at 70% into your level, personally, I like to put the little 10% in there and just let it chip away. You don't really notice it in the lack of AA XP. It's completely up to you. Do whatever you want. That's just how I do. But you can do that with this little thing here. Now, for the AA window, to pop it up, I think the default key is the letter V. So that'll pop it up. If that is not the default key, you can definitely change it in settings. I don't have my UI on this character. You go to settings, and then you go to keyboard, and then you can change it to UI, and then you can find it under alternate advanced window right here. It's behind my head. Alternate advanced right here under keyboard and UI. Right there, you can change it to whatever you want. But I think by default it is V. You can also just open your inventory and you have the button right here in your inventory. So that's how you get there. So you start getting AAs, or you can start to get AAs at level 51. But something to point out is that the amount of XP you need to achieve an AA is the same that it takes you to go from level 51 to 52, no matter what level you are. So if you are level 60, to achieve an AA, you need the amount of XP it took you to get from level 51 to 52. Now, when Planes of Power comes out, you'll be level 65 at that point if you're max, and it'll continue to be the amount of XP to get from 51 to 52 is how much you need to bring in to get an AA. So as you can imagine, since the AA XP requirement doesn't go up, the higher level you are, the easier it is to get AAs. So it's going to be a little slower now that we're in Luclin than it will be in the future when we're in PoP for a couple of reasons. One, you're higher, so you're killing higher level mobs, so you're getting more XP. And then two, if you're leveling in Planes of Power zones, which is likely since Planes of Power will be out, the Zem on these zones are much higher. If you go to PQDI, take a look at all the zone Zems and all of that, all of the planes of power have a nice chunk higher Zem on average. They're all different, but on average, some higher Zem. So those two things combined is going to make it feel a lot faster. Now, I've talked to a couple of people. It seems like right now, if you're in a full group in Luclin right now on Quarm grinding AAs, you're getting somewhere around 1 AA an hour. This will speed up like in Planes of Power. Like honestly, I feel like in Planes of Power you get like 3 an hour. I feel like you can if you're just in a savage group and you're just killing it in some Plane of Fire or something, Plane of Storms. That is kind of what I remember. Now, we'll see when we get there, right? We'll see when we get there. Now, soloing is going to be slower. Maybe you're a beast. Maybe you have some super secret spot. I don't know. But, soloing, you could probably get an AA every couple hours. But you get all the loot yourself. You can AFK whenever you want. Yada, yada, yada. So, treat it however you will. That's for you to decide. Play it like you like. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look here. So in the first tab, we have General. Now, the General AAs are basically the same for every class across the board, regardless if you're a caster, melee, hybrid, regardless of what it is, these are all going to be pretty basic. Innate strength, you're going to increase your strength by 2 points for each level. You can see it costs 1. We have the cost column here to the right, and then you can see the current or max on the left. So we have 0 out of 5. So you can put up to 5 points in there. Now we have basically every stat you can want. So depending on your class is which one you would get first. These are pretty low priority. You're getting most of your stats from your gear. Anything that's important to your class, you're probably over the soft cap. And now that we're coming into Luclin, the gear is going to get crazier. Furthermore, you get into PoP, the gear is going to get crazier, right? There's the power creep, as they say. So there's not a super good reason to get stats that don't help your class. And then the stats that do help your class are likely stat priority on your gear, so you're getting it through that method. And then once you're above the soft cap, we'll use Classic for instance. In Classic, I believe the cap, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the cap was like 255 was like the stat cap. That was the hard cap. You just can't even go above that. And then the soft cap was 200. And what happens, say you're an intellect class, and you get to 200, under 200, you're getting a certain amount of mana per intellect point or intelligence point, certain amount of mana. And then when you get above the 200 mark, the soft cap, that is reduced, and at that point you kind of want just raw mana, plus 30 to mana, plus 50 to mana, whatever it is. You want that on your gear because you're going to benefit more from that because everything is nerfed. The amount of mana you're getting per intelligence is nerfed once you get above that cap. Now, with expansions coming out, these caps are lifted, soft caps are lifted, hard caps are lifted, so on and so forth. So depending on what expansion you're in, Luclin, PoP, or whatever, this can help you get above those caps if it's needed, but really you're going to get it off your gear. All right, so next up we got like innate resistances. Same kind of thing, kind of low priority. Obviously, certain raids are going to do certain damage to you, so this is always going to be a nice way to kind of cheese out some resistances so you don't have to rely on it on gear or buffs as much. It's just, all of these are just a way to get your character nice and well-rounded, you know what I mean? Like, if you spend the time to get all these, grind all these AA points to a point where you got all the important stuff, and then you start getting the lesser important stuff, your character is just going to be sturdy. You're just going to be a machine. You're just going to feel so much more powerful. Because the rest of the world, all the mobs and stuff, they are where they are. They're static. They're not moving. Especially once we get to PoP. Once we get to Planes of Power, that's the end date for the server, right? We're done. We're not going on to a next expansion. So if you keep chipping away at AA and you just like sturdify your character, you're gonna start feeling really powerful as the other mobs are just static. They're just sitting there, not doing much. You continue to get powerful. So we also got like metabolism or lung capacity. So you breathe longer underwater. You eat less food. Just like quality of life type stuff, first aid, you could push it so you can use first aid further, like most classes. You can't bandage past 50%. Well, you can knock it up here a couple times, get it up there. And then there's some crafting stuff. So in order to get to the next step of AA, if we click on one here, you get a little description down here in the box of the AA, and then also it'll tell you here, must spend 6 ability points in the Generals tab in order to get any of these in the Archetype tab. So if we go back to General, you have to spend 6 points in here before you can move on to the next one. So in General, what I like to do, and what most classes are probably going to do, just so that they can move on to the next tab here, is innate regeneration is really good. It's going to obviously, what is good is relevant to what class you are, but these are all pretty basic and everybody has the same ones, so sometimes it just boils down to the same thing. But typically what I do personally is I'll get innate regeneration. You put 3 points into that. They cost 1 point each, and you get 1 point of regeneration per tick. Doesn't sound like much, but when you put 3 in there and you're getting 3 extra life per tick, if you're a warrior and you're used to just sitting there with no, no hit point regeneration at all, 3 is kind of huge. I mean, it's like wearing a rubicite breastplate or something, right? So it's something, and it's gonna stack with whatever. So as a necro, that's pretty huge to me. All right, and then that's only 3 points though, and so the other 3 points that I like to do is innate run speed. Doesn't stack with any other run speed. So if you have So, it's overpowering it. Bard is overpowering it. But how often do you have a Bard in your group? And also, if you're doing indoor zones, you can't So yourself. You can't use your boots. Everybody pretty much has boots, right? Journeyman's boots. You can't use those things indoors. And sometimes you don't want to go outside to reboots and then come back inside, or outside is too far, whatever the case may be. It's nice to have this so that you can run faster while you don't have So or Journeyman's boots. So it does come in. A lot of zones are indoors. Comes in handy. After you get those, you can move on to the archetype. One thing to mention is once you get all the generals, get 6 into general, it's a little foggy, but I believe you can get a title. It's like Baron or Baroness for all classes. It's just like a general title that you can get that goes in front of your name, Baron or Baroness. So then you get over to archetype. Over here, these AAs are going to be pretty much specific to what type of class you are. Are you a caster? Are you a hybrid? Are you a melee? But it's not that simple. Some things will be like, are you a healer? Do you have a heal? If your class has a heal, there might be an AA available to you that's not available to non-healers. So that's what they mean by archetype, and that's how this one breaks down. So if there is an AA that has only something to do with healing, then anybody who has a heal, paladins, rangers, obviously clerics, the priest classes, anything like that, they will have an option to that. It's like this, right? Actually, let's just look at it. We have healing adept, right? And healing gift. These two are likely only available to healing classes. I here am on a level 1 ranger, so naturally he has a heal, or will have a heal, and so these are going to be available to me. Something to notice, at this point, you can see right here in the cost column, they cost more than 1. So if I want to put a point into these, it's gonna cost me 2. Now being a hybrid as a ranger, you might you might get a little bit of the melee side, right, or the physical side, and you might get a little bit of the caster side. So depending on your class, archetype's going to look different from class to class, but it's based on your class, even though it's not the actual class column. The class column is going to be specifically for your class, where archetype is kind of just based on your class abilities. Let's say that. A big one here to me, as a mana caster or a mana user, everybody's going to have mental clarity, which is going to give you 1 instead of a hit point regeneration. It's going to give you a mana regeneration point, which is like super huge. We all know that. That's actually super duper huge. Both of those are really huge. Like those are like must gets. A lot of different things that'll help you out here. Combat agility and combat stability are really good for melee classes. This one here, this ability increases your melee mitigation by 2, 5, or 10%. Makes you a sturdier tank. Stability makes sense. So tank classes, melee classes in general that are going to be taking any sort of damage or going to try to solo, that kind of stuff. Combat agility. This ability increases your melee damage avoidance by 2, 5, and 10%. So again, Like, see what I mean? You start working up all these AAs, you start adding these AAs, and you just become pretty powerful. They're very small, they're very subtle, but when you add a lot of small things, a lot of subtle things all into one over time, because you're getting like 1 an hour in a group, right? Or something around there. Don't crucify me if you're doing better than that, but something around there. And so you start putting all this stuff together, and you really start feeling like an absolute unit at some point. Here you can get like fear resistance. What does this one do? 10% health fleeing with a single blow. It says this ability gives you a chance to finish off an NPC that is below 10% health and fleeing with a single blow. So finishing blow is like an execute, depending on what games you've played. Now this, you could put 3 points in it, so this is going to, you know, increase something. Oh, here you go. It actually tells you, my bad. The second level works on NPCs below 52 and then 54. So if they're above level 54, it's not going to work at all. All right, so that's the basic rundown of that. Now, let's see if there's an actual ability in here. It doesn't look like it. We also have natural durability. This ability increases your maximum hit points by 2, 5, and 10%. Everybody can you know, do well using that. Natural healing. This ability raises your natural regeneration by 1 point per level. Another regeneration point. Might not be offered to all classes though, because it's not in general, it's an archetype. So you just got to see what's offered to your classes. Again, this website that I'll link down in the description will help you with that if you don't want to go class to class. All right, so the next tab is class. In the class tab, you're gonna need 12 points in archetype. So if we click on this, it'll tell you here, must spend 12 ability points in the archetype abilities to move on. So it's not 12 total, it's 12 in the archetype. So you gotta spend 6 here to open this up. Then you gotta spend another 12, which puts you at 18 points to open this up. Once you're at 18 points, you can then start using the class abilities. Now, once you put 12 points in archetype, you get another title, and I don't remember what it is. It's something like this one. I think there's a couple of them. It depends on, I guess, on your archetype. It could be, if you're like a priest, I think you might get like elder or venerable for some, or veteran or something like that. So moving on to class, you need 12 in archetype before you can start doing these. This is when it starts, the list is small, but it starts getting real interesting in class. Now, when you spend, excuse me, let me just click on one of these so I can see here. Okay, it doesn't say. All right. So when you start spending points in here, I think it used to be back in the day, you used to need to spend like 24 points in here to get a title. And then the title is specific to your class. Me being a Necro, the title is Lich. So it'll put it in front of your name. So, you know, I could be Lich Classic or whatever. I don't know if it's actually 24 because I saw somebody with Lich, whatever their name was, already. And I highly doubt they had 24 plus 12 plus 6. Maybe I'm wrong, and they've got already almost 50 frickin' points. I guess it's possible if they play a lot and have done nothing but grind. But maybe it's a little lower than that. I'm not 100% sure. Let me know down in the comments if you know, or let everybody know down in the comments. But I believe it used to be after you spend 24 points in your class. But it's hard, man, maybe, you know, I mean, what is it? The server's been out, or the server's been back up. Luclin's been out for 5 days now or something. So I saw that a couple of days ago, but I guess it's possible, depending on how much you play. Anyways, it's neither here nor there. So you do get a class-specific title. Now, this is where stuff gets real cool. And these are abilities. So let's look at the first one. This is often referred to as MGB. This is a mass group buff. And what this will do is, instead of when you use a group, you activate this ability first, and then you use a group buff. And what that'll do is it'll buff everybody within an area around you. I talked a little bit about this in my last video. So what people will oftentimes do is, you know, like in the Nexus, they'll probably use, you don't see it, you'll probably go to like the middle of the Nexus, and then, you know, you could announce, hey, in 10 minutes or at whatever, 11 o'clock server time, I'm gonna go ahead and do an MGB KEI, which is like the new clarity. So I'm going to do one. So anybody who wants it, you know, gather in the middle at 11 o'clock, 10 minutes from now. And you can kind of shout it out over the zone a few times. People will come up and oftentimes, and you could even put it in your shout if you want, but people oftentimes give you like a tip. You know, they'll maybe give you like 10 plat here, 15 plat there. Who knows? There's ballers out there. Maybe they'll give you more. But they'll come and people will like, you know, some people will give you nothing, obviously. Some people don't have anything to give, but they, you know, that's not the point. The point is you have it available and you're going to go ahead and do it. You can see here that the cooldown on this ability is 1 hour and 12 minutes. So you can do it every hour and 12 minutes. You can go over there. And oftentimes people will team up. Somebody will see, oh, you're giving out clarity right now. And then a cleric might be like, oh, well, I'll give out agiolism or whatever it is. And they'll go ahead and they'll time it with yours. And multiple people will get together. Multiple classes will get together. They'll all do their MGBs. And it's kind of like world buffs in WoW Classic, if that like connects with you. Everybody will gather up. And then there's something else. I don't have any gear on this character, but the other thing is focus effects are out in Luclin as well, and the focus effects are now we've retrofitted some items with focus effects. So some items you may already have just suddenly have a focus effect on them. They don't introduce them until Luclin, so you probably haven't seen them on your item. But if you go through your items now that we are in Luclin, you may notice that they have small things like maybe mana conservation, so your spells cost less, maybe spell haste, so that your spells cast a little bit faster, different things like that. Well, there's also extended enhancement, which is also called EE, extended enhancement, and what that'll do is that'll make long, friendly, what do you say this? I forget the name of the, let's see here, maybe they say it here. Beneficial, like long friendly buffs buffs that you would put on a person instead of a debuff, I guess. So like something, we'll just use KEI again, the mana regen buff. When you put that on somebody, if you have EE, extended enhancement, that'll extend the buff. It'll make it last longer. So if it naturally lasts 30 minutes, maybe it now lasts 45 minutes with EE. But there's ranks of this, so depending on your gear, depending on where you're getting your gear, if you're getting your gear from raids, if you're getting your gear from the top tier raids, maybe when Planes of Power comes out, there's another rank of EE, but you can get up to like EE3 for sure. EE3 becomes like decently common at some point, and so people will advertise, you know, EE3, MGB, KEI, in the Nexus in 10 minutes or whatever. So it extended enhancement 3, mass group buff, Coedex endless intellect. And then what that'll end up doing, I'm spending a lot of time on this, what that'll end up doing is giving everybody who's anywhere near you in your just general radius is going to get hit with the buff. That's the point of the MGB, is you don't have to be in their group, you don't have to target anybody, you just do the buff and it hits everybody within your radius. So everybody kind of tips you, meets around you, and they get hit with this. Now, what you can do, or what ends up happening, is before alts go out to level out in the world, they'll try to find this. They'll try to find an MGB. Maybe you see it on your main, and you're like, I don't really need that on my main. Let me log into my alt real quick and run over here and wait for it to go off, and then log out and save that for later. But what you usually do, maybe you're a cleric and you're level 30, you can get EE3 MGB, KEI or whatever, and then you have, it can get up to like 3.5 hours or some shit like that. It's crazy. And so you can get this long ass clarity buff, and you can go level, you know, for a chunk of time. And tanks can get, you know, a big HPAC buff, so on and so forth. Pretty much any beneficial spell. Me as a Necro, I really only have one, and that's Dead Men Floating. So I can give like a whole area Dead Men Floating with MGB. So it's not that great for me outside of raids. Obviously, you want a Necro to have it in a raid. You know, Dead Man Floating lasts about the same amount of time, so only one Necro really needs it. But it costs 9. So if you see there, the cost is 9 AA points. It's expensive, but it's one and done. Now, when you want to activate the ability, if you look over here on the right, they're grayed out, but you see Train and Hotkey. So if you want to train this ability, you have 9 available. It'll say here, AA points. It'll tell you how many you have available. You can hit Train, and it'll buy it. Once you have it bought, what you need to do to make a hotkey is click on it, and you click the hotkey button right here. That'll pop open a little, let's see if we can do it. Well, we can do it like here. It'll pop it up on your cursor like that when you hit hotkey, and then you can put it on your bar wherever you want, like that. Where is that? Here it is. And so you can put it on your bar like that, right? So you hit hotkey, it pops it up on your cursor, you drop it on your hotkey bar or what have you, and then you can pop it whenever you want. All right, MGB was a big one. Let's try to get through these. There's things like innate camouflage, so you don't have to mem the ability, it's just a skill now. So like a skill like kick or something like that. This is obviously, we're a ranger, so we're going over ranger class AAs. Now MGB, pretty much any caster that has a buff, a group buff, has that. It has to be a group buff, I believe. Ranger also has ambidexterity. This ability increases your chance to dual wield successfully. So, you know, makes you a better melee character as a ranger. Archery mastery increases your damage, your range archery damage by 30, 60, and 100%. You double your archery damage after you put 3 skills into this. Another thing to point out is just because the cost is 3, and you see that you can, the current and the max is 3, it doesn't mean that it's 9 total. You put 3 in once, the next skill could be like 5 or 6 AAs. So you put, the cost is 3, you dump it in there, now you have 1 of 3, current to max, 1 of 3. The cost could go up or it could not. It could stay at 3, or depending on which it is, it may bump up to 5. And then you gotta get 5, and then you put your second skill in there, and then you need 1 more, and that 5 may bump up to 10 or 8 or who knows what. Okay, so something to keep in mind. Endless quiver, quite wild for a ranger. You only need 1 arrow. So you can buy the biggest, baddest arrow, maybe it's quested, maybe there's a raid drop arrow. You put that 1 single arrow in your quiver, and it never wastes. Maybe you have different arrows for different situations. And so you only need to put the 1 in there, and you're not actually using, you have an endless quiver, you have infinite ammo. Huge quality of life thing for a ranger. Double riposte, body, mind, and rejuvenation, more regeneration, physical enhancement. One thing I can't help but notice is I don't see, it might be a PoP advance, because PoP gets even crazier. So that's how it goes. Every class is going to have something different. Again, I'll link the thing in the description, the website. Check your classes, see what your class has, get hyped on it. This is what's available to us now, are these 3. Now, when Planes of Power comes out, we get 2 more tabs. You have to be level, if you see here, you have to be level 61 in order to get these. So, you know, by that point, you should be maxed out 60. And you just kill 1 mob and you're 61. But one more thing to point out is they're allowing you to save up 100 AA points. So you're gonna max out at your, if you just grind AA points and don't spend them, you can save 100 here. If you are so wild as to, over the next year or whatever, you max everything out, you can then grind an additional 100 and just sit on them, waiting for PoP to come out. When PoP comes out, you just spend them all. But that's the limit, is 100, I believe. Okay, so moving on to PoP. When PoP comes out, more stuff like advanced innate stats. So you can further increase your stats. 2 more per point, up to 10. So you could spend 20 points, well, they're 1 each. So you can spend 10 points in each of these and get 20 of that stat. So you can further just pad your stats, if you would. More protection. These are like, PoP Advanced are like another level of general, basically. Planar Power. This one here is going to move your cap, move your stat cap, so that you, so we talked earlier about a hard cap on your stats. You can only, you know, there's a ceiling, and once you get to that point, you can't go any further. You can only have so much strength, so much. It's tough to get there sometimes, but with the new and modern gear coming out of Luclin and PoP, it's going to be easier to get there. You're going to get there if you raid a little bit. And what this will do is this will increase your maximum. So right here, it'll increase your maximum by 5 points per rank. You can put 5 ranks in there. So it'll push your hard cap up 25. So say the hard cap, like it was in Classic, I think it was 255, I believe it was. This would push it, you know, up to 280 or whatever. Now the cap's going to be different in Luclin and different in PoP, but that's just, I don't know what they are off the top of my head right now. Then you move on to PoP ability. So here, let's see if there's any restrictions. Requirement is level 62. So you need one more level to get these. Maybe they're different each. Yeah, each of them are actually different. One of them said 61. So each might have its own requirement, but here's one, 64. So okay, so each ability is gonna have its own requirement, I guess. Now these are abilities, so these are likely also an extension of the class tab. These are going to be most likely specific to the class that you play. There may be some there may be some that are like lightning reflexes. I could see a warrior getting that, a monk getting that. You know, there may be some overlap. But check out like one like this, like Headshot. This got nerfed on official servers, even TLPs and everything, but this ability provides you with a chance of instantly killing an opponent who is too far below you in level to provide a challenge when using a bow. So you can headshot, you have a chance to one-shot a mob that's green, basically. So if it's a green con, so something that I like to bring up and I've brought up in the past is I believe at level 65, when you're capped out, the, 100%, the giants that are at like the hill giants in Wrath Mountains are green to you. So you can go to Wrath Mountains and potentially just be headshotting giants, just one-shotting them. Pretty cool. So you can do that to any green mob. You know, farm at your leisure, whatever it is. Let's look at a couple here. Ferocity. You gain the ability. This ability grants you an increased chance of performing a double attack. Pretty cool. I'm sure a lot of any melees that have double attack probably have access to that. Punishing Blade. This ability increases the chance of scoring an extra hit while with all two-handed weapons that you wield. You can get a double attack with a two-hander. So on and so forth. Flash of Steel. This ability further increases your chance of a double reposting. That's crazy. So you can see how things get crazy. Let's get lightning reflexes. Avoiding incoming melee damage. This ability further increases your chance of completely avoiding melee damage. So you could just, I guess, dodge. That increases your dodge chance. Coup de Grace. Let's check this one out. The first level works. Oh, okay. This ability gives you a chance to immediately slay an NPC that is below 10%. So Coup de Grace is an extension of the first one we checked out, which was Finishing Blow. But that's when mobs are fleeing for their life, right? But the headshot's huge because they could be 100%, and you just one-shot them with one arrow if they're green. Classes that can charm, so Druid animals, Necros undead, Enchanters everything. There's Dire Charm. You have a chance to permanently charm something. It will never break. There is a chance. Now, that is also nerfed in Live. In Live, it says that you 100% chance to permanently charm something, but it has to be like level, I don't remember, like 45 or lower, or like 40 or lower, something stupid, to where it's like not really relevant because you're level 65. Having a level 40, 45 pet is kind of trash. But in this one, in this current snapshot of how it was back then in 2002, you have a chance to just permanently, so I mean, after you do it a couple of times, you'll get a pet and you'll be able to keep them permanently and not have to worry about them breaking and stuff like that. So it gets pretty wild. I know that Shadow Knights and Paladins have a mount. It kind of a la WoW, I guess. If you play WoW, Paladins and Warlocks got a free mount. Well, before that, in here, Planes of Power in 2002, Paladins and Shadow Knights get a free mount if you would. You obviously have to grind the AAs, but you do get a free mount through AA system. So stuff like that, really cool. I guess that's going to conclude it up. This is actually like 20 minutes longer than I thought it would take. But that's the basic rundown. Obviously, the General and the PoP Advanced are pretty much the same for every class, but the archetype is based again on what type of class you are and what kind of abilities you have. and then the class and the PoP ability are going to be specific to your class for the most part. So definitely check those out. Pop it open by the V key or make a new hotkey for it, or check that out in the options. But that's going to be it. Hopefully I covered some stuff. Hopefully I didn't leave anything out. Trying to think if I did leave anything out. I think I covered everything. If you have any questions, just drop them down in the comments. Again, one last time, there'll be a link to that TAKP wiki where you can kind of look through stuff yourself there in the description of the video. Other than that, I will see you in the next video.